Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Dan. This is Tibetan Buddhism Shamatha week. So I'm alternating between Tonglen and Shamatha. Anyone new to this class or to the temple? Okay, welcome guys. Come on in. Are you guys new to meditation? Really? Okay. You picked an interesting week. We're going through a 3-part series right now, and I'll run down what we've been doing so far so you have some context. But don't judge all meditation by what we do this week. And then everyone watching virtually at home, welcome. And you can type in any questions at any time. And in between the meditations, we'll have a question and answer. So this week we're doing a meditation called Finding Inner Refuge in the Spaciousness of Mind. So the ones we've done so far were finding inner refuge in the stillness of the body, where we basically were still in our body, and then we connected to that stillness and viewed all motion relative to that stillness. So finding that peace of stillness even in the midst of motion. The next week we did finding inner refuge in the silence of the speech. So there we made noise and then stopped, and then we tried to create that space of silence. And then we connected to that space of silence and were able to view all sounds. It was quite a noisy night. There was babies crying and everything. And we tried to perceive sounds from the refuge of that silence so that we could be with that silence even amidst the sound. This week, we're doing inner refuge of the spaciousness of the mind. So last week when we did silence of the speech, we included thoughts in speech. So you might wonder what's left to go next, because we've already done thoughts. So if you can think of thoughts, the words, the images that appear in your mind, everyone experiences thoughts differently, but maybe you hear words in your head in a monologue, maybe you see images, maybe you see words. We're gonna go, so think of those. If you have a still lake, and I don't even know if this happens or not, but it's just an analogy. Say that there's ripples and bubbles at the surface of the lake from the fish swimming in the lake. The thoughts that come up are like those ripples and bubbles. This time we're going to go underwater and look at the fish that are causing all those thoughts. Welcome, you can come on in. So we need to understand, so the spaciousness of mind is where these things called mental formations arise in the spaciousness of mind. So the first we need to understand is what do we mean by the spaciousness of mind, and then what do we mean by mental formations? So to start with that, because we're really talking about, it's easy to understand spaciousness as in you're in a big space, but we're talking about cognitive spaciousness here. So as an analogy for that, imagine that you're retired, or just imagine someone who's retired. And so they went to work every day, and now they have all this free time. So they can literally do anything. They could travel, they could start watching reality shows, they could do anything they want. So that's a spaciousness, because there's all these options. So she can't really do anything until she decides what to do. So let's just say, to narrow it down, she says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a novel. That narrows it down a little bit, but you can't just now go start writing a novel. You have to narrow it down more. So of all these possible novels that you could write, now she has to decide, is it going to be fiction? Is it going to be nonfiction? Say she picks fiction. What kind of fiction? Romance, adventure. Say she picks sci-fi. Then what kind of universe? So you see, you have the spaciousness of cognitive choices, that then these mental formations, these formations that she's choosing, narrow it down, so that at some point she can actually start taking action. At some point she has enough narrowed down to where she can actually start writing the book. So that's a formation within that spaciousness. All of those choices keep getting narrowed down. But while those while that configuration guides her actions, it's at any point she could scrap the book, and that could happen where she's absolutely miserable writing this book, but feels like, I already decided I'm going to write it. I've already decided what I'm going to do, and might feel stuck going forward writing the book. But at any point, she could totally just dissolve it and go do something else. So that's kind of the analogy for how these mental formations arise in our minds that are fundamentally free, but we end up getting tied down. So from the beginning of our lives, we're making choices about who we are. Find where I am. So yeah, so we make a bunch of choices about our identity, beliefs, values, plans, priorities, dreams, and these are all walls made out of paper. They're all written with chalk, but we get to a point in our lives where they become our identity. They become like steel bars, a steel cage. It's like the chalk has become etched in stone, and a lot of times we don't realize the freedom that we have in our identity and in this identity that we become entrenched into, and our beliefs and everything else. So that's a little bit too big of a topic for us to get into today. We're going to be looking at mental formations that don't arise over a lifetime, but that arise throughout the day. So back to the thoughts that arise. Here's another analogy. So think of these thoughts as kind of arising like weeds, and we want to see the root of the weeds. But these weeds are kind of finger-shaped, and so they point at what they want us to see. And so what we typically spend our lives doing is looking at them and looking at what it points to, rather than seeing the roots from which the thoughts arise. So as an example, and this is one from my life. Hopefully this doesn't happen as often, but still happens once in a while. So I'm driving around the freeway, and say I'm in the fast lane, and somebody cuts me off. So the mental formation of anger arises and changes the way I perceive the world. So for one, it makes me think that this guy did this to me. He saw me in the rearview mirror and said, I'm going to cut this guy off. And it obscures the possible reality that maybe he just didn't see me. And then it comes with a proposed course of action. Now, all of a sudden, I'm looking at all the cars and all the lanes, and I see this little squeaky path that if I swerve this way, I could come back, swing back around, and cut this guy back off. So I see that, but the anger obscures me from seeing the danger of doing that. That I could hurt myself, I could end up in the hospital, I could end up causing an accident, hurting someone else. And so, and now all I've accomplished is that I'm now 20 feet ahead of where I was before, a half a second further down the road, and feeling satisfied that I, basically accomplished nothing. Rather than if I had looked at the root of that anger and seen that it had no substance, no value, wasn't going to accomplish anything productive, and was simply altering the way I perceived reality and influencing the way I behaved, then I could have avoided doing something totally stupid. So today we'll be working with what are called the 5 poisons in Tibetan Buddhism. And we're going to be actually generating them in a nice controlled environment so that we can watch how they arise and observe them, and observe how they arise they arise from this spaciousness of mind, this cognitive spaciousness. They abide relative to that spaciousness, and then they dissolve back into that spaciousness. And they're poison. So they're only poisonous if you bite into it. So just think of it as a poison apple that's floating in front of you. As long as you don't take a bite of it, then it can't hurt you. There's nothing evil or wrong about generating these feelings. There's nothing wrong about having them. It's all about how you relate to them and how you react to them. So the 5 poisons in Tibetan Buddhism are anger, greed or desire, pride, envy, and ignorance, which in this context, ignorance is kind of a hard one, but we're going with the laziness aspect of ignorance. And this practice we're doing is based on instructions from Song 13 of Shabkar's Flight of the Garuda. So Shabkar was a 13th century Tibetan poet and a Dzogchen Buddhist practitioner. And so these 5 poisons aren't just emotions. They're kind of little like character packages, little mini personalities that arise. And that's why if you, like say you were watching a movie in a foreign language, no subtitles, and it's a different culture, a culture you're not familiar with, you can still pick out the guy that's mad. You can still pick out the guy that's the greedy one, or the envious one, the desirous one, the lustful one, the dopey one, because these poisons, the way they make us act and the way they make us see the world, they're like mini personalities that like you would know the personality of a person by knowing that person, but you know the personality of these poisons because they're so widespread. They're in everyone. So certainly important that we learn how to deal with them. So just really quick to go over the 5 and the way that they color the world and the way that they try to influence us to act. Anger gives us an attitude of hostility and influences us towards aggressive behavior. Desire or greed gives us an attitude of obsession over something we don't have or have and results in selfish behavior. No surprises. And this might be a little redundant because I'm sure you guys already know the definitions of these, but I want you guys to start thinking of them not just as emotions or feelings, but as actually coloring the way you see the world and attempting to influence your actions. Pride gives you an attitude of self-importance and leads to arrogant behavior. Envy gives you an attitude of entitlement and leads to destructively competitive behavior. And finally, ignorance in the aspect of laziness is an attitude of not caring or indifference. And it leads to a behavior of really wasting opportunity and killing time in just seeking self-oblivion. Wanting that kind of fog of escaping from reality. So while they flavor, color our perceptions and try to influence our actions, they can't actually force us to follow them or see things their way. Just as we learn to see sounds as always arising relative to silence and sticking with that silence, and to see all motion as being relative to stillness and being able to stay with that stillness, it really is an amazing skill if you can learn to keep, when these poisons arise, if you can learn to stay with the spaciousness of mind, where you don't have to see things the way they want you to see things. You don't have to do things the way they want you to do things. You can be the person that you want to be and not take a bite of the apple, and the poison is absolutely harmless. So we're going to solidify all this with a guided meditation, but I wanted to know if there's any questions so far on any of this. Okay. Everybody clear on it, or just too confused to know what to ask? Good. Okay, so again, for the guided meditation, we'll be using our imagination to invoke the 5 poisons. We're going to go through 2 sets for each one. The first one, I'm going to give you an actual scenario and then try to connect with this imaginary person and feel what they're feeling. And then the second one, I'll give you some prompts so that you can try to find something in your own life. So what we're trying to do is come up with something that actually makes you feel this poison so that you can observe it and observe how it arises from the spaciousness. And then when we dissolve it, the idea is that gives us some contrast, so that when we dissolve this poison, having not been influenced by it, we can actually feel and connect to that spaciousness, that cognitive spaciousness, that absolute freedom that all of these very restrictive poisons arise into. So go ahead and get into your meditation posture. Any posture is fine. You just want to have a straight spine. You want a posture that's going to keep you alert and keep you from falling asleep, and but also relaxed, comfortable, and stable, so that you don't want to be in a position where you have to exert energy to stay in that position. So you can go ahead and relax your body, no intentional movement. Relax your breathing. Don't intentionally control your breathing. Relax your mind, relax your attention, and you can just chill out for a few moments, not having to do anything at all. Okay, so first, and you might want to do this meditation with your eyes closed, just because we're going to be using our imaginations. Okay, so first you're driving down the road. It's a 2-lane street. It's not a freeway. And most of the traffic is on the right side, right lane. You're cruising down the left lane, kind of in a hurry. So you're happy that the left lane is pretty clear. But then as you're going, somebody just completely cuts you off and they're going super slow. And now all of a sudden, it's as though you're stuck behind all the traffic. So you're patient, riding behind this guy. There's no way to get around him. And some more cars get in front of him. So now you're waiting at the left turn light behind about 3 or 4 cars. And the light turns green. And this guy's on his phone or something. So he doesn't see. And he's waiting there for a while. And then finally you honk at him. And he finally gets his stuff in gear and makes it and just squeaks through the light at the last bit of yellow, sticking you with the red light. So if you've experienced anything similar, hopefully that you can connect to a feeling of anger there. Notice how that anger or frustration colors your perception, motivates your action, maybe even tempts you to run that light. But it doesn't obscure the spaciousness of the mind that it arose from. Let it abide relative to that spaciousness. And let it dissolve back into a spaciousness of unconstrained possibility. And now, if that was hard to connect to, now you can do something that makes you feel angry. So try to think of something that just pisses you off or really upsets you. It could be a person who upsets you. It could be someone who's hostile to you. It could be someone you just really dislike. It could be a situation that aggravates you, something to do with traffic, maybe a piece of furniture you keep bumping into, or just something that one of your little pet peeves. If you got nothing there, regardless of what political party you're in, you can probably think of some political figure you don't like, some kind of frustrating government policy, unfair judicial ruling, wherever you need to take your mind to get a little bit of anger going. And now focusing again on that feeling of anger, how it tries to influence your mind, enticing you to trade rage for reason. And again, it arose from spaciousness, abides in that spaciousness of mind. And now let it dissolve back into a spaciousness with your mind ready for the next scene. So that was anger. Now we're going to do greed or desire. So first, the scenario, you're in a restaurant and you're on a really strict diet. So you're eating a bowl of cold carrots, really bland, really boring. And you see at the table next to you, they're ordering a bunch of food. And first they get garlic bread with cheese and it smells really good. And then they get baked potatoes with sour cream and cheese. And you're really looking at that, wishing that you were eating that and not the cold carrots. Then they bring a pizza to the table and they finally polish it all off with a banana split, with ice cream and caramel and fudge. And hopefully any of those foods gave you a sense of desire, craving. So if it did, focus now on that feeling of craving, how it wants to show you only the enjoyment of the flavor and not the calories and consequences of what you'd be feeding your body. and that this craving is hosted in a mind that's unforced and always free. And now let it dissolve back into the spaciousness of unbounded creativity. Okay, so now you guys are on your own for finding something that makes you feel desire, but let's keep it G-rated. Maybe a person you desire, either that you want or you have and want to keep, worried about keeping. Maybe it's a food, savory food, sweet food. Maybe it's possessions, clothing, jewelry, a better car, a nicer home. Maybe it's something having to do with wealth, power, a job, just financial security. So focus on the feeling of that desire. Again, how it tries to influence your mind, showing you something outside yourself and making you believe it's fundamental to your happiness, arising from nothing but spaciousness of mind, abiding relative to that unlimited spaciousness. And now let it dissolve back into spaciousness. So one more, and then we'll take a break. This is going to be the poison of pride. So for the imaginary scenario, imagine, this probably isn't something that's going to happen to any of us, but imagine that we're actors or actresses, and we're in a new TV series, and it turns into a huge hit, and we're the star of the show, and so now we went from a nobody to super popular. Everyone is telling you what a great actor you are, how talented you are. Everybody wants your autograph. And so you start feeling like you're really special, like you're above everyone else because people are treating you that way. So if you could connect to that feeling of pride, that maybe you are really better than other people. Maybe you are something really, really special and the world is in your debt for it. That it's simply an illusion that arises from the infinite possibility of the spaciousness of mind. Even if you follow it, can cause you to miss the opportunity to become someone truly great. It abides in that spaciousness. And now let it dissolve completely back into that spaciousness without a trace left behind. And now finally, for this round, we're going to do something for you that's a source of pride. So maybe you think you're good looking or you're in better shape than others. Maybe you think you're charming or funny compared to others. Maybe recently you had an Instagram or social media post that got a lot of hits and made you feel kind of special. Maybe you think you have a better profession than others or that you're better than others at your profession. Maybe you take pride in the superiority of your family or of your children. Or if none of that, I'm pretty sure all of you have a political affiliation that you feel is better than the other political affiliation, and look down, can at least generate a feeling of pride in looking down at the people from the other side with different political views or who support the other party. So focus on that feeling of pride, how it tries to influence your mind, having you distance yourself from others as separate and superior, and losing connection with the fundamental reality that we're all equal. And even possibly rejecting opinions and viewpoints that you might actually need to hear, or that taking them seriously might actually refine and improve your own viewpoint. But it can't force your viewpoint. It can't force your actions. It can't make you believe you're better than others. It can't make you act as though you're better than others. So simply observe how It's merely an appearance within the spaciousness of your mind. It abides in that spaciousness without ever separating you from the spaciousness or the freedom of that spaciousness. And then dissolves back into a spaciousness of limitless potential. So that's all for the visualizations, but now I'd like you guys to continue on your own for a few minutes. Hopefully you've had some experience of that spaciousness of mind that we're talking about. And if you can connect to that, then remain in that spaciousness, and any thoughts that arise, remaining in that spaciousness, observing them from that spaciousness. Hopefully you can start to see the roots from which and the energy from which those thoughts are arising. If you lose touch with that spaciousness, whatever imagination, whatever poison resonated the most with you, go ahead and generate that for a few seconds. And then hopefully when you dissolve that back into spaciousness, that helps you connect back to that place of spaciousness. If you end up getting distracted by a thought, take a moment to look at it. Maybe even try to identify the root cause or energy from which it arose. Let it go and return to that spaciousness. So as you slowly come out of meditation, you can take a moment to reflect on your experience. How'd that go for everyone? Maybe just by show of hands, who felt they were able to connect and actually feel one or more of the poisons as we went through that exercise?
It was brief.
Yeah.
Can't hang on to them.
Okay. So with every exercise, you had just a brief moment, or multiple brief moments with each.
Multiple brief moments.
Yeah. It can be. These kind of things can be tricky that way. They don't like to be looked at. They're like the little floaters in your eye, and you try to look at them, But yeah, I actually there was an online retreat that I was in, and they were talking about who can observe their thoughts and who has the issue that as soon as they try to observe their thoughts, as soon as you look at a thought, it disappears. And I thought it was going to be, because I'm of the type that when I look at a thought, it disappears. And I thought that was rare, but it was overwhelming. It was like 80% of the people said that when they look at a thought, it vanishes. And it's funny because you always hear the advice, watch your thoughts like clouds, and most people can't do that. Most people, it's like pop, 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 pop. Okay, so a few hands went up on being able to connect to the emotions, or the poisons. Really, they don't even have to really arise as emotions. Just if you feel that influence of your vision, your perception being colored by the poison, and your actions being influenced. Okay, so does anyone want to share anything about their experience?
Actually, I think I lost track of what we were actually meditating on this exercise. But I did start that way, and I found myself finding myself in a situation that might have been negative, particularly the driving one. It just happened recently. I was visiting my sister in Arizona, and we were talking about how people get mad at the driving and blah, 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 blah. And we both said it's out of our control. It's nothing to get mad about. There's nobody's going to win. It's not going to affect you later. We're going to turn left there, doesn't matter. And releasing and letting go, not carrying it with you was what I got out of this meditation.
Yeah. It's fun. It's interesting to rationalize with to see what these poisons are trying to tell you to do, and then kind of rationalize with them. Sometimes they can sneak up on you though, and so yeah, it's good to be able to. So did you feel like you were able to connect it all to that spaciousness of mind?
Absolutely.
Good, excellent. Yeah.
I've been coming to the realization that all these things that have been happening, they're not out there. They're always like the karmic seeds ripening. It's kind of like there's no connection with that driver. I forgive him, but I see how false it is. Like if that emotion that was about to come up, and it's never caused by the incident. They're always on the surface, but it's something.
Yeah. So you're talking about the karmic seed just waiting for the right moment to ripen. Yeah.
That's kind of what I see the mass type thing. I mean, after a few seconds, these things happen. When these emotions are arising, because I think I'm trying to pinpoint those so I don't get into the second and third arrow and go out. I can tweak on that for a long time. I could beat up somebody I should have beaten up 10 years ago. I'm in that frame of mind.
Yeah. No, I get in that frame of mind too. We're like, next thing you know, you're thinking about a situation from like 10 years ago, and man, I really should have done this. And you feel the anger like it had just happened.
Oh yeah, so because I get in theory that it's like it's all I don't know how to express it, but what's out there is all in here. It's my perception. It's my
Yeah.
The outside is really the illusion, that's the illusion, right? I'm creating it that it's out there, kind of, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you know.
But catching it, so I guess I'm trying to catch it so I can improve my behavior, thought, and action, so I don't harm others. Because those are the 5 points, 5 poisons that harm others if I let them go unchecked. If I think about them, it's not so bad. But if I keep thinking about them, then I'm gonna act on them. I'm gonna hurt myself or somebody else.
Yeah.
In the world. So that's the whole point of that.
Yeah,
and
generally.
It's different than controlling it. It's different than I'm really angry, but I'm not gonna control it. Then it bursts. So I can either repress or suppress my anger, and kind of like sit with it till it dissipates. Something like that.
Yeah. Well, the technique in this practice isn't to try to suppress it, but just to observe it. So then it's just like right. It's just like if you're a really calm driver and you know someone else was in the car with you and said you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. Like I cut you off. You don't have to listen to the person. But when these emotions arise, or when these and I didn't really like the word emotions because they're delusions. They're these mini personalities that try to possess us, and but
it's the first thing we should do is try to control our minds, right? It's like step 1 in controlling.
But controlling your mind, you're gonna
I know.
You know, letting your mind be, and not being caught up in it, because the thing is we these things arise, this anger arises, and we go, oh, that's my anger. This is me. I'm mad. This is how I see the world. This is what I want to do. And we're fooled because I don't know how many maybe you've seen Star Wars and like the Jedi mind trick, but it's probably a reference that's going to be lost on some of you. But the idea was a Jedi can put these ideas in somebody's mind. So the classic one is these stormtroopers are looking for these little droids, and they're like, who are these droids? And then the Jedi is like, these aren't the droids you're looking for. And the guy's like, these aren't the droids I'm looking for. So it's the same kind of thing where these emotions or these poisons arise, and I want a piece of chocolate cake. Do you really? Just because this thing arose and told you that you wanted a piece of chocolate cake, and you can be on a super strict diet, you can be doing really well, and next you're shoving cake in your face because you believed that's what you wanted, and you were just simply tricked into taking on a personality that wasn't yours. And it's also, I think, interesting to think about something that the Buddhist philosophers of the past didn't have was the theory of evolution, or so it's also interesting to think how many of these poisons were once useful when it was kill or be killed, and survive, and how many of these poisons are just kind of lingering along from that. And then part of our next stage in human evolution is to evolve beyond these to where we can actually choose who we want to be, and not have the freedom of this great spaciousness, which is said to contain a great wisdom, constantly having it obscured and our lives taken over by these 5 poisons. And you could probably think of more poisons. Like these days, I think anxiety is a big poison, and it doesn't really necessarily fit with those 5. But so anything else before we move on? Oh, and just by show of hands, how many people were able to connect to that refuge of spaciousness to some extent or another? Okay. We're able to connect to the spaciousness. Okay. So maybe about half of you. It's hard. It's tricky. But it's one of those things that even though maybe it's difficult, that it's going to turn some people off to meditation, and there are simpler meditations than this. The value of understanding this just a little bit is such that I think it's worth exposing you guys to this. So let's go ahead and do. You guys all up for envy and ignorance? All right, so everyone can get back to their meditation posture. And again, you can just relax for a little bit. Just be still, natural breathing. Don't intentionally think thoughts, and don't intentionally control your attention. Just rest, just be for a few moments. So we'll start right off with envy. So if you guys bring back the scenario we had with pride, that was season 1 and you were the star of the show. Season 2 starts, there's a new actor introduced to the cast, and he's now the breakout hit. And he's now the more popular character. He's now the star. Everyone says he's the great actor. And when you're sitting there watching the TV show, you're like, man, this guy actually is really good. He's actually maybe a little bit better than me. When you're out with the cast, people are walking right by you, like they don't even see you, to ask for his autograph or her autograph. And so try to focus on that feeling of envy that someone else is now more special than you. And if you can connect to that, see how it arises relative to the spaciousness of your mind, maybe causing you to obsess over what someone else has, or even hoping that this actor will mess up and maybe get written off the show, or lose what they have. Maybe something bad will happen to them. They'll be discredited. Some old social media post will show up and everyone will hate them and everyone will love you again. As though any of that has any real bearing on your own happiness or your own identity or your own value to the world. So abide in that, but not losing connection to that spaciousness that it arose within. And now you can dissolve it back into a spacious mind of completely unrestricted freedom. Now we'll do something for you that's a source of envy. So basically someone who has more of the thing that you base your own value on. So kind of going back over that list of the things we have with pride, but now someone else has more of it than you do. So if you think you're good looking, they're better looking. If you think you're in good shape, they're in better shape. If you think you're charming, they're even more charming. If you think you're funny, they tell better jokes than you've ever told, and you know it. And if you think you're good at your job, they're better than you at your job. Or maybe it's just someone for whom things come to them really easily, and all the things that you had to work really long and hard for and struggle to keep come to them with such little effort, and they take it for granted, and that really makes you envious. So focus on the feeling of that envy, how it tries to influence your mind, thinking that someone is a better you than you, or you're entitled to what they have, how it tries to convince you to be miserable, regardless of your own fortune, and to rejoice at their misfortune as though their misfortune somehow benefits you. How that arises like an illusion from open spaciousness, abides relative to that spaciousness, taking refuge in that spaciousness. And now let that dissolve back into that same spaciousness, completely clear and unconstrained. Okay, final one, ignorance or laziness. This one's a bit tricky, but I found it kind of helpful. So for the scenario, imagine you're 45 years old, still living in your parents' basement, rent-free, no job, no interest in doing anything or making anything of your life, just wasting all day on TV, video games, eating potato chips all day, day-old pizza sitting around that you're nibbling on, guzzling down cans of Mountain Dew, which none of this is stuff you should be doing at 45 years old. You can get by with it as a kid, but again, no desire to learn anything or accomplish anything, just cruising along on autopilot, barely existing, living for the next distraction. And so I know that's not a feeling. The feeling that you're trying to get to is that not caring, fogginess, oblivion, just completely not being bogged down by the harshness of reality, by escaping into that self-oblivion. And I think ignorance is one of the hardest ones to kind of connect to that poison. But try to focus on that feeling of laziness, ignoring all opportunity and responsibility. It might cloud your mind like a fog as an escape from all your worries. But just like on a damp and foggy morning, that fog arises from the sky, abides in the sky, just like the fog would abide in your mind, and then when you're ready, completely dissolve that feeling of ignorance, laziness, back into the sky of the spaciousness of your mind, and try to connect to that spaciousness. So last scenario, and again, let's try to keep this one G-rated, because I'm sure there's a lot of non-G-rated, especially for anyone who's been in rehab, but we're not going there. Just something for you that's a source of oblivion or laziness, maybe reality TV shows. I'm sorry, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say those are complete wastes of time. Mindless video games that are just, repetitive and get you into that brainless zone. Instagram or TikTok feeds, just scrolling through mindlessly. Any times you want to escape life's pressures and responsibility to just be stupid. And focus, if you can, focus on the feeling of that laziness, how it tries to influence your mind, to waste our time in this rare and precious opportunity of having a human life, of having opportunity and freedom to do as we wish, and choosing comfort and oblivion over a chance at spiritual growth or a chance of helping others and doing something productive with the opportunity that we have. How this laziness or ignorance arises from a spaciousness that could be anything at all, abides there. And now let that insubstantial fog dissolve back into that spaciousness. So hopefully that helped you connect to this place, this inner refuge of spaciousness. We're going to continue for a few more minutes on your own, resting in that refuge of a spaciousness of mind that can't be stained. And again, if you lose connection with it, any of the 5 poisons or scenarios that we've gone over so far, you can use that to generate a mental formation, observe it, let it dissolve back into spaciousness and reconnect to that spaciousness. Otherwise, just remain in that refuge of inner spaciousness and observe your thoughts arise, abide, and dissolve from that refuge. So as you slowly come out of meditation, you can open your eyes if they're closed, move around a bit, reflect on how you feel. Thank goodness I remembered to look, because there's a question from the YouTube audience. Of the 5 poisons, which one does fear fall under, and does fear fall outside the poisons? I think I would say fear probably falls outside of the poisons, unless you can connect it back to something. Like if it's fear of losing something you want, then that would be related to greed, desire. Generally, aversion can fall under anger. If it was fear of someone getting something that you want, and so you can almost like fear something related to the poisons, greed, envy. I feel like I'm missing one. Which one am I missing? Oh, pride. Yeah. So like you could fear something. You could fear embarrassment. That could be under the poison of pride. But I don't think you can say that fear neatly fits into any of the 5 poisons. And there's some things, like I said, anxiety that are. But again, I guess you could have anxiety over losing something. You could have anxiety over being embarrassed. So even anxiety, you could tie into the 5 poisons, but they don't fit neatly into like one category. So thank you for the question. Does anyone else have any comments, questions? Want to share how it went? We've got 3 minutes, so you can sit here silently, or you guys can ask. You can even ask something that unrelated to what we were doing today.
So you shared that we do something on the other weeks. So every other Thursday we do this type of meditation.
Yeah. So Shamatha is typically a concentration training meditation. This one we did a series of so the stillness and the silence ones were a little more Shamatha leaning. This one probably falls more into Vipassana, but I wanted to complete the series. So they're more on the Shamatha weeks are more on meditating on like an object or it's more training your concentration. So when your concentration goes off the object, you bring it back. And then on alternate weeks, it's Tonglen, which is a compassion practice where you send you basically take the suffering of others on yourself, and then you send all of your good qualities and your love and your compassion out to other people. And it's in breath, out breath. The guy who leads it is really, really good. And that's at least the ones that I've seen have been totally guided meditations. So
that's very similar to the metta meditation, right?
It is. It's kind of the Tibetan version of it.
Okay.
I think the big difference, I think, is that metta, you would just be sending love out. But the kind of interesting part is that you're actually on the in-breath taking in the suffering of others. The purpose is to kind of get past the ego by saying, I want everyone else's suffering to ripen upon me, and I want to give all of my good qualities and all of my good fortune to others. And it kind of they stress that it's symbolic, that you don't actually want to take all the suffering of everyone, but just to get into that mindset can really, really help you free the bonds of that ego that's always me, mine. Everyone else can suffer. I want. And to kind of flip the script can be really freeing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. Oh, and Tom, did you have a question?
The image that you offered at the beginning of your talk about a lake that's quiet, the bubbles come up.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Helpful. And sinking down below the surface to fish or whatever else is down there. It's a good image. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so thank you guys for filling out that little bit of time that we had, and we've now come to the end. So we'll go ahead and transfer merit really quick. Go ahead and join your palms, and may any merit gained from this practice benefit all the living beings without exception. And may the hearts of all beings be open, that their inner wisdom can radiate from within. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to bring Tom up for some announcements. And yeah, if you have to go, don't feel bad about it.
We opened Dharmabumtemple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and they're not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and we have a food redistribution program every Thursday at 4:30 in the afternoon. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be very helpful. Thank you very much for being here, and we wish you well and hope to see you again.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Dan.
And just wanted to apologize really quick for the follow-up question on YouTube that I didn't get to, and feel free to post that next week if you want, and I will answer it for you. Thanks, everybody.